Thank you for tuning in. You're watching The Property Guide in ET Now. I'm Faye D'Souza. This is a show that aims to give you all of the information you need to buy property in India and make smart investments in real estate. If you have any feedback about the show or questions about buying a home, feel free to write to us. Our email ID is at the bottom of your screen, and you can reach me personally on Twitter as well. On the show this week, we'll take an outlook on the residential market of Ahmedabad and Gandhinagar for all of the questions we've received from you, asking us if they make for good investment options. We'll also talk about Gurgaon, Pune and Bangalore. We'll tell you, if you are a buyer on a DLF property, do you have reason to worry? Joining us in the studios today, Ravi Ahuja, Executive Director, Cushman Wakefield India, Arvind Nandan, Independent Analyst. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get straight to Ahmedabad, but first I want to bring in my colleague Avan, who will give us an update on the prices in key locations in both Ahmedabad and Gandhinagar. Avan.
Thanks, Faye. The capital of Gujarat has a reputation of strong infrastructure and good governance. But has that translated to a robust property market on the ground? Now, satellite towards the west has seen prices of homes increase from 3,800 rupees per square foot in 2010 to an average of 5,000 rupees per square foot today. That's an increase of 31%. Vastrapur, which is considered to be one of the fastest growing areas in the city, saw an increase in prices as well. The residential property prices in the high-end segment at this location is anywhere between 5,500 to 8,000 rupees per square foot. Prahalad saw an increase of about 18% in the prices of homes. Residential property prices here have moved from 4,300 rupees per square foot in 2013 to 5,100 rupees per square foot in 2014. SG Highway, or the Sarkhej Gandhinagar Highway, which is laced with construction on both sides, saw its prices drop this year from 4,300 rupees per square foot in 2013 to 4,117 rupees per square foot in 2014. Sargasan, which is located in Gandhinagar, has seen prices standing anywhere between 2,500 to 2,600 rupees per square foot. With that, it's back to you, Faye.
All right, Avan, thank you for that update. Ravi, I want to come straight to you. I remember we had this conversation some time ago when we talked about the fact that Ahmedabad is not attracting any sort of services talent, BFSI or IT or BPO. But the government has been working very hard, to attract these people. There's the Gift City construction that we saw. They've been talking to these various industries, carefully in the past as well. Do you see that changing at all down the line, maybe 3 years, 4 years down the line?
So in terms of the services sector, the government has given an arm and a leg to get them in. Their policies say so. The Gift City, which is one of the most ambitious projects, which was considered to be Shri Modi's baby project, that unfortunately so far is not showing signs of a takeoff. While infrastructure-wise, I think there is good development. I personally feel that it takes a big, kind of strength to move the financial capital, which is Mumbai, and looking at banks and financial services to move their front offices, let alone back offices. So even when you talk about back offices in terms of services, that's a big play. And we've seen Ahmedabad falter again. And the migration again has not been very encouraging in terms of what we've seen in the southern cities or even Pune for that matter. So these are some of the factors which are leading Ahmedabad to falter yet.
Arvind, that's one industry to talk about, services, and the other one is manufacturing, and that's something that Gujarat has always been big on. The fact that both Ahmedabad and Gandhinagar and the highway that connects them, which is the SG Highway, runs alongside the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor. Over the period of the next 10 years, when this industrial corridor, the plan actually plays out, what sort of a difference will it make to these two cities?
Well, I think there's definitely going to be a big difference, but one has to understand what it means. First of all, when the DMIC is operational and you have SG Highway and the whole Twin City falling on its route, it's definitely going to have an impact on that. But like Ravi was saying, Ahmedabad economy or Ahmedabad-Gandhinagar economy is slightly lopsided. It's not a very comprehensive economy like you have in Mumbai or certain other places. It's primarily focused on certain types of businesses. And again, like Ravi was saying, the spirit is more entrepreneurial amongst the population. So it definitely leads to certain sectors doing well and certain other sectors being left out. I do not see even 10 years down the line things changing significantly or becoming diametrically opposite from where they are today. So
in spite of the fact that the Prime Minister Modi is so big about all of these things.
Definitely, and the Prime Minister has done a good job, I believe, while he was the CM, and now the new government in Gujarat is also doing some good work. But it doesn't mean that you will change the demographic characteristics completely, and that doesn't happen usually. So you will have to basically do things which will suit the demography, which will suit the characteristics and the taste and the spirit of the demography. And that's where I feel certain sectors can do well. Financial services sector could actually do well there with certain limitations. And manufacturing, like you said, in any case is big there, primarily because they have good natural gas, they have access to water and certain other things. But I don't think IT or certain other economy, telecom, etc., could suddenly, get out of nowhere and start doing very well there. So it's going to be slightly lopsided or limited in its overall scope, is what I believe.
But Ravi, the last time we spoke, I remember we talked about the fact that there aren't any big national developers building large projects in Ahmedabad, and this was a while ago. That has changed now. Godrej is there, Tata Housing is there, the Adani Shantigram project is massive. Do you think these projects and the fact that there is this sort of architecture, there is the gated community, there's the swimming pools and things like that being talked about, will that be a fillip to the market in Ahmedabad?
No, see, I think these developers who are creating townships like Godrej or Adani, they will do extremely well in the mid segment. When you talk about the high-end segment, they're restricted to certain locations because, again, mind you, the price points are reasonable. For example, we saw an FSI fillip or increase given by the state government there in Gujarat to Ahmedabad. We saw Ashram Road now attracting 5.4 FSI. Now that is huge, and Ashram Road is congested. It is old buildings which probably now will start looking at redevelopment, and this will lead to a lot of density.
Obviously, there will be investors who are looking at Ahmedabad because we get a lot of questions from people telling us, review the city, tell us what's going on. Tell us if it makes more sense to buy land outside or to buy apartments inside. I'll be honest, a lot of these questions come in from NRIs who are looking now to put money back into Gujarat or put money back into Ahmedabad. I want both of you to give us advice. Since I was already talking to you, tell me first of all, which neighborhoods, if I'm looking specifically at Ahmedabad, which neighborhoods within Ahmedabad and Gandhinagar do you think make most sense for an investor? Should I stay in the heart of the city or should I be looking on the SG highway or the connecting roads where there's a lot of construction happening right now?
So to my mind, given the recent FSI increase and the ongoing supply that will keep coming in Ahmedabad, there are almost 30,000 units which are under construction in the Ahmedabad city. I would personally prefer to give advice to investors to stick to protect their downside, and that would mean restrict yourselves to locations which are already established in the central, the Navrangpuras of the world, and in the western suburbs of Ahmedabad. In terms of location in the west, we have Vastrapur, Satellite, and Thaltej, among others, that will keep doing well.
So tell me this, every time we talk about Bangalore, Arvind, we keep talking about the fact that because of what the IT industry is expecting in growth, you can expect Bangalore to grow at say 10 or 12% every year for the next couple of years. What sort of growth can we expect from capital values in Ahmedabad?
Bangalore, like you rightly said, it's an IT-driven economy. 80-85% of economy is driven by IT. So long as the IT sector keeps doing well, Bangalore will have new corridors coming up or the existing corridors being upgraded all times. Ahmedabad is much different in its characteristic. Ahmedabad is not driven by one IT sector. It's actually driven by more business sentiment, financial services sentiment, and for that reason, Ahmedabad presents a different kind of a proposition altogether. It is not a market which keeps jumping up and down very significantly like certain other markets do. It's a market that grows at a very stealthy, slow pace. In fact, to my knowledge, there hasn't been any great appreciation in values. Only in the topmost segment where you have 1.5 crores to 5 crores kind of apartments, that's where about 5-6% jump has been seen in values, but otherwise they've all been stable. So it will be unfair to take the idea from Bangalore and try and transpose it here. it's just not comparable.
All right, so we got a question from Anil Joshi, who got in touch on Twitter, and a lot of people are asking this question. There's a lot of buzz about the fact that, buy land in Gujarat around Ahmedabad right now. It's a great investment option. Do you agree that it's a great investment option?
So in terms of land, always land has been appreciating asset, and it's a great investment option. Having said that, I personally feel Ahmedabad, given the FSI, that's an indirect route which leads to a reduced land cost, which is passed on to consumers. So to my mind, if you were to buy land, if you've been an investor who's bought land before with the FSI rates being, FSI norms being what they were, and suddenly they've gone up, your land cost is reduced by 1/4. I personally feel that land is a good long-term investment. As long as you can look at 5 to 10 years holding capacity, land will never falter.
Right. Arvind, for an investment, Ahmedabad, Gandhinagar, Surat, Vadodara, which one do you think would make most sense?
If I'm doing a commercial investment, I would still stick with Ahmedabad. Okay. Although things are not changing, the yields are not changing, the rental prices are not moving, but that is one thing which will eventually change in due course. If I'm an investor in land, then I have several options. I would actually like to go to those belts, those areas where infrastructure is coming up, where the connectivity is growing. In fact, an out-of-the-hat idea would be to look at the smart cities or the new cities, new urban centers that may be developed over a period of time. So Dholera or its vicinity could become a great option. And if you're looking at doing residential investment, then I would say these 3-4 are very good options. Surat is in fact behaving in a slightly positive manner. It's one place which has been showing some signs of growth in terms of values. If I'm an investor in apartments or residential real estate, I'll stick with these 3-4 cities or towns. Land, I'll go to the hinterland. For commercial, I would rather stick with Ahmedabad.
All right, that's a fairly clear answer. And remember, if you are looking at buying land, you have to have at least a 10-year horizon, is what both of our guests say. What we're going to do now is put up a list of interesting projects that are under construction in Ahmedabad and Gandhinagar. If that's what you're looking for, take a look.
If you're looking to invest in Ahmedabad, here are a few options you can go through. Riviera Exotica from Goyal & Company, Casa Vayoma from Ajmera Realties, Sundarban Epitome from Ganesh Housing, Garden City from Godrej Group, Elysium from Adani Group, Krupal Heritage from Narayan Krupa Infrastructure, and Satyadeep Heights from Deep Group. And if you're looking forward to invest in Gandhinagar, here are a few projects you can look at. Paramuk Paramount from PSY Group, Sukhan Sky from Sukhan Group, Sham Status by Sarjak Infrastructure, and Swagat Ford by Swagat Group.
Time for a quick break, but stay with us. When we come back from the break, we'll talk about Pune, Gurgaon and Bangalore. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Property Guide on ET Now. Thank you for staying with us. Both of our guests are still with us, helping us make smart decisions when it comes to buying property. Now, for those of you who've booked apartments in a DLF project, you must have read about the fact that SEBI, which is a capital markets regulator, barred the realty major DLF and top of its 6 executives, including the chairman KP Singh, from the stock market for 3 years after finding the company guilty of active and deliberate suppression of information at the time of its public offer. The stock was down 24%. And the question that we're asking is simply this: will this impact the company's ability to finish their projects on time? We know that several of those projects were already delayed. If I'm a customer who's already booked with DLF, is it fair for me to assume that things are going to get delayed even further?
Well, to a certain extent that's true. The ability to raise finance is affected. But from a consumer point of view, the first thing that comes to the fore is the sentiment. And whenever such a thing happens, regardless of the status of the project where somebody is investing, there is a sentiment, there's a negative sentiment that builds around that. And that does impact sales or investments in the shorter term. So to that extent, they are affected. I don't think the whole DLF edifice is crumbling because of this, or people should be overly worried if they've invested in a DLF property, because if the property is getting constructed, it will get constructed by the sources of funding which are already deployed there.
Does it make sense if I'm a customer holding a booking right now to get in touch with DLF to find out what's going on, to find out the status of the project that I have booked in?
So I think DLF, being a listed company, would most certainly make available any such information that the customer would seek. Having said that, I also know that DLF has a great rent roll in terms of their rented property and rented assets, and that gives it a great cash flow and therefore comfort to that extent in terms of cash flow and how they can use that cash flow to continue very strongly their development.
All right. So if you are a customer and you're having trouble with some builder or with a project that you have booked in, feel free to get in touch with us. Our email ID is at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try and do everything we can to help. We have a question from Amit Kumar, who's planning to buy a 3-bedroom apartment of about 1,500 square feet for end use with a budget of 1.2 crore rupees in Gurgaon. Now, he's interested in the golf course extension road, Sona Road, or any of the sectors around there with good infrastructure. He can wait about a year before occupying. He says, please give me some locations and comment on the litigation issues as seen in these areas right now. Obviously, people buying in the NCR region always have this concern about the fact that there is litigation, and we know that that delays projects a lot. How can he, what's going on in that area right now, in the golf course extension area, and what can he do to protect himself?
So to answer his query, I think he could look at the investment and probably look at Sona Road, which has great, physical infrastructure and now is well connected. To my mind, the proposed extension of the metro from Huda city centre to the NH8 via the golf course extension will probably give further fillip to Sona Road, and probably my advice would be he could consider Sona Road. On the litigation, there was a 1,400-acre acquisition plan of the state government, and they had issued notifications with that regard. That's the GCX, court case. And to that extent, the landowners of that location were a little jittery after that notification and therefore started selling land. Some of the developers have been known to buy land over there. Eventually, these land parcels which were bought by developers were released, and out of 1,400 acres which was earlier planned, only 85 to 90 acres were acquired. The Supreme Court has given an instruction that they would like to see these sales which have happened to developers, just to make sure that these sales were actually concluded, and I think we are yet awaiting feedback on that.
So from a customer's point of view, you'd say no reason to worry at this point?
So given that once we get the feedback that all the sales were concluded genuinely, and the government has already released these land parcels, I don't think there's much to fear, except if you're in the 85 to 90 acres which is getting acquired.
All right, so you have to make sure that you're not in that area. All right, let's take another question. Akshay has written in, he wants to buy a 2-bedroom flat in Pune with a budget of 45 to 50 lakh rupees. He wants to know if the Katraj-Kondwa Road area in Pune is a good investment option. If yes, what kind of appreciation can he expect over the next few years? Arvind, you want to take that?
Sometimes I try to relate Pune to how a maple leaf is. So Pune has 3 strong corridors, one to the left, which is Hinjewadi and Bavdan, to the north where you have Pimpri-Chinchwad, and to the east where you have Nagar Road and the other corridors. The one to the south, which you could actually call maybe a stem of the maple leaf, is the one which is most recent in terms of its development, and Katraj, Kondwa or NIBM, all that fall in that particular corridor. So it's definitely a good location because it's started to come up in the last 3, 4, 5 years. So you have all the long-term prospects there. Quite a few options actually, not 1 or 2. There are several options there. First sale as well as second sales. You could look at them. Prices are 3,800 to 5,500, so very viable prices. I'll just give some options, but I would suggest that he should do good due diligence and good search in the market. There's Kolte Partles 3 Jewels. There is Sankalp Buildcon. There is a property by Kothari Brothers, another one by Krishna, and several others. I can actually list about 20-25 options in that particular area. So look at all of them. I think you have a great proposition, but be an investor for the long term if you're going there.
Define long term from Pune's point of view.
I would say at least 6 to 7 years.
All right, 6 to 7 years if you're going to insist on buying in Pune at this point. Time for a quick break, but when we come back, an entire chunk of questions about Bangalore. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching The Property Guide in ET Now. Thank you for staying with us. We receive so many questions about Bangalore every week. We've decided to actually dedicate a portion of the show to answer these questions. Manish Sharma has written in. He tells us, and this is not specifically a question about Bangalore. He says, a builder in Bangalore is offering us a 2-bedroom property at 4,000 rupees a square foot. If we don't opt for the 80-20 scheme. If we go for the 80-20 scheme, the same property will be sold to us at 4,500 rupees a square foot. He says the scheme looks attractive, but we're really confused if it's a good deal for us. So we've talked about 80-20, 20-80, 30-70, everything, the split several times. But in a case like this, when it does seem like an attractive option, but there's a price to the fact that you're bringing down the risk, what would you recommend that the customer does?
In this case, clearly, the buyer would be paying about 5 to 7 lakh rupees more if he would opt for 20-80 scheme. But coming back to the general guidelines for 80-20 scheme, the buyers must be beware and they must understand that they have to look at the fine print. It all boils down to the time of you booking in a particular project cycle and how much time is envisaged for the project to take. And if the project is nearing completion, it may just not be a viable option for the buyer. But if it is at initial stages and is supposed to take time, the buyer will clearly protect his downside, given that these projects usually get delayed by 6 to 12 months minimum. And if it gets delayed further, his downside is protected. Eventually, the fine print will always read under normal 80-20 schemes we have seen that the responsibility of this loan will be lying and resting with the buyer, which means should the developer kind of default not only on delivery but also on not paying the interest till the time of delayed delivery, eventually the buyer has to make do to the bank and would be responsible for that. So as long as the buyer is aware of these pitfalls and he's read the fine print, it's a great show. Go to only reputed developers, go to projects which have full approvals, and therefore you will restrict your downside.
All right. Debatanu has written in, he's planning to sell his ancestral home and settle in Bangalore where there's good connectivity, has a budget of 60 to 70 lakh rupees, looking for either a 3-bedroom or a villa. For the villa, he says he's willing to go up to 80 lakh rupees or take some loans. Please give me a suitable option of location. So, of the locations in Bangalore, Ravi, what would be a good place?
So if you look at a 3 BHK property, it'll be configured at about 1,000 to 1,500 square feet. Given this budget, I think he's got a lot of venues open in Bangalore market. One could look at the northeast side, with Hennur Road, which has great connectivity to Outer Ring Road. That could be one option. In the southwest, there is Kankpura as a location which is seeing good growth and eventually will see decent price appreciation. Southeast, there's Sarjapur Road, which has seen great connectivity with the IT population because of the commercial and the IT belt, with a lot of software and ITES companies.
Will he be able to afford Sarjapur Road in that budget?
I think so, in some of the more interior, because then Sarjapur Road is also a very long road and it's connected with some of the off Sarjapur Road lanes, which hover between 5 to 7 kilometers. To my mind, 4 to 6,000 rupee per square foot is something he could go with. Sarjapur Road on the higher side, about 6,000 rupee a square foot. And then Whitefield again is a good option. It's a self-sustaining location, now well connected with earlier traffic congestion, issues and concerns being allayed. I think these could be some of the locations. On the villa side, he could clearly look at the southeast with Sarjapur Road again. May be a little expensive, so he will have to go a little in the more interiors of Sarjapur Road and on the old Madras Road. These could be some of the options.
All right, and of course, if you're looking to buy and live in Bangalore, it would depend on where you work or where your children go to school or college. So in that terms, you have options there and you can choose between one of them. Prashant has written in, he wants to buy a 2-bedroom apartment in Bangalore for end-use budget of 40 lakh rupees, looking for possession around 2016 or December 2015. Preferred areas, Yelahanka, Whitefield, Shajapur Road, Electronic City. Please give me a couple of reliable builders in these locations. So, I mean, there's a whole list of builders building in these locations. But if you were to, off the top of your head, give him a few names that he can rely on within that budget, so that narrows it down a little bit.
Right.
What
so
would you
budget
recommend?
is the main thing here. There is Hennur, of course. There is, there's DS Max. I'll give just a couple of names. There are many more. Old Madras Road, Devanhalli. There is Divashri Nest. There is Whitefield, Nishant Properties, and there are several others, by the way. But because of the budget, he will have to look at certain homegrown, Bangalore-grown players. Also, Kengeri is there. There is DS Max Sundale property. He could also look at Kadlur Gate.
Okay.
Yeah, it may be slightly out of his budget, but if he has the ability to stretch it a little, then I would say, don't leave that out because you are close to Electronic City, which is primarily one of the best locations in Bangalore.
All right, so Prashant, and the good thing about Bangalore is that if you actually get in touch with a couple of local brokers and go out and look, you might actually find something in the second sale market that fits your budget, that might not be, under construction. You actually buy what you can see, like both of our guests recommend. We've come to the end of the show. Gentlemen, thank you so much for spending time with us this week. If you have a question for either Arvind or Ravi, write to us. Email IDs at the bottom of your screen. It'll be our pleasure to hear from you. You can reach me personally on Twitter. Thanks so much for watching.